I'll never go hiking ever again. I never expected a routine hike to turn into the most terrifying experience of my life. My friend Jesse and I are avid urban explorers. We like to push boundaries, abandoned buildings, underground tunnels, and sometimes forgotten hiking trails that wind through the dry, rolling hills of Los Angeles. It started with a rumor about an old New Age commune that supposedly vanished in the 80s. No one really talked about why, just that they had been there, and then they weren't. We found an old map online marked with a single strange word, Ilaria. No record of it anywhere else. Google didn't turn up a single result, so of course we had to check it out. The trailhead was overgrown, nearly impossible to find without GPS. As we walked, the feeling set in, something wasn't right. The deeper we went, the quieter it got. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of our boots on dry leaves. About 3 miles in, we found the first sign that Ilaria had been real. A massive, circular stone arch covered in cryptic symbols, some resembling astrological signs, others looking eerily like inverted crosses. Jesse was the first to step through. The second he did, he went pale. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I listened, and then I heard it too. A faint rhythmic humming coming from deeper in the hills. We followed the sound. What we found was worse than any horror movie. At first it just looked like an old hippie compound. Abandoned shacks, tattered banners with faded sun and moon motifs. But then we saw the altar, a massive stone slab in the center of a clearing surrounded by dozens of wooden effigies, some shaped like people, others like twisted creatures. The symbols we saw on the archway were everywhere, but now they were mixed with grotesque depictions of horned figures, their eyes gouged out, and the humming. It wasn't coming from speakers or wind passing through the trees. It was coming from the ground. Jesse grabbed my arm. "We need to go." But before we could turn back, we heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from behind one of the shacks. We ducked behind a crumbling wall, barely breathing. A man in tattered, sun-bleached robes stepped into view. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken, but wild, like he hadn't slept in years. He stopped at the altar and knelt, pressing his forehead to the stone, then whispering something we couldn't understand. He raised his hands, and we saw the knife. It was long and jagged, blackened like it had been pulled from a fire. He drew the blade across his own palm, letting blood drip onto the stone. The humming grew louder, and then the ground moved, not like an earthquake, more like something beneath the surface was stirring. We ran. We didn't stop, didn't look back. Whatever Ilaria had been, it wasn't just a hippie commune. It was something older, something hungry. When we finally reached my car, Jesse swore he heard the humming. Still, I laughed it off, told him it was just our nerves. But when I got home, I found something that made my stomach drop. A smear of fresh blood on my boot. I washed it off, but last night I woke up to a sound outside my window. Humming. And when I checked my phone this morning, I had a new notification, a calendar reminder I never set: tomorrow midnight Ilaria calls. Daniel and I have been friends since middle school. It's a relationship that was initially formed by proximity. Our surnames start with the same letter, so we were always seated next to each other and sustained by the relentless grindstone of time. Honestly, the guy can be a real pain in the ass. In fact, I would say that it's his default setting, and so I wasn't terribly surprised when 5 minutes into the hike he went plunging off into the underbrush, completely disregarding the spray-painted blazes that mark the way. "Dude, you're supposed to stay on the goddamn trail," I shouted after him half-heartedly. "The trail can suck my dick," came the faint response, partially muffled by his crashing footsteps. Like I said, default setting. I spent a moment relishing the peace and quiet that inevitably descended whenever Daniel was out of earshot. Then, somewhat reluctantly, I shouldered my backpack and went to follow him. The guy has a lousy sense of direction and no clue about proper woodland behavior, and I didn't relish the thought of having to call the rangers out to rescue him. I stepped off the path and my boots sunk into the loamy earth, which immediately released a thick cloud of midges. It took a surprising amount of effort to lift my feet from the clinging muck. I'd hiked up Gwillian Mountain by myself and with others many times before, and it wasn't a difficult hike. This was the first time I'd ever disregarded the trail. I wish I hadn't done it. It was easy to follow Daniel's destructive passage through the woods. Broken sticks and trampled leaves littered his wake. If I stopped and listened, I could hear him faintly in the distance, whooping and shouting incoherently. The air was spicy with spilled sap and the musty odor of overturned stones. The trees started to move more closely together and curved over my head, their leaves blocking the sky. It was as if I were walking through a forest cathedral. Even the birds maintained a respectful silence. All I could hear was my own increasingly labored breathing and the soft suck of the mud beneath my feet. Then I realized I couldn't hear Daniel anymore. I stopped walking and strained my ears for the slightest sound. Nothing. How long had I been following this idiot? It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes yet. The air was suffused with a distinctly unseasonable chill, and I realized that I could no longer clearly see my hands in front of me. "Daniel, Daniel," I shouted. My voice died in the still, humid air. Nothing to do but continue to follow his footsteps, now larger and deeper and oddly distinct in the half-light of the forest. They led to a small clearing and then abruptly stopped, as though Daniel had been whisked up into the air. There was something small and gleaming in front of the last print, and I knelt down to identify it. A neat pile of bone-white pebbles stacked with obvious care and intent. A cairn I can't really describe to you the sheer magnitude of the dread that squeezed my throat and stomach in its iron fist. I tore my gaze away and up anywhere but that evil little collection of stones, and found myself gazing at what was hanging directly above my head. A shirt jacket and jeans hung neatly from the tip of an overhanging branch, swaying gently in a relentless breeze. The jeans had been tucked carefully into a pair of muddy hiking boots. Daniel's boots. A bright beam suddenly lit up the clearing, and I spun around, afraid and disoriented. Daniel was shining his flashlight into my face. "Dude, Mark, are you okay? I was looking for you, bro." Daniel peered closely at me, his face creased in an unfamiliar expression of concern. "You were, I saw." I stammered, managing to flail my arm upwards. Daniel followed my gesture with his flashlight, illuminating a branch bare of leaves or anything resembling clothing. You saw what he asked, skepticism and the usual asshole-ishness creeping back into his voice. I managed to direct my gaze downwards and flinched involuntarily when I saw that the cairn was still there. "Oh, that," said Daniel. He began to chuckle. "Like it. That's some Blair Witch shit right there." My unexplained dread was beginning to dissipate into annoyance at Daniel and the more commonplace fear of being lost in the middle of an unfamiliar forest. "You're a fucking idiot," I told him. "Why the hell did you go off trail?" "Now I have no idea where the hell we are." "Don't worry," he replied and began to walk briskly off the campgrounds, only about 5 minutes from here. I followed him. What else was I supposed to do? It was so dark now that I could see nothing except Daniel's flickering light. He strode ahead in silence, occasionally sweeping his light back and forth across the ground behind him. For my benefit, I suppose. Something was very wrong, but I couldn't quite articulate it. At some point, we must have regained the trail, because soon we were walking up the familiar steps that led to the campground. Daniel's voice came out of the darkness. "Kimon helped me build up the fire." I wondered why he had turned off the flashlight, and then I realized what had bothered me before. As he had illuminated the path in front of me and behind him on our way to the campground, he left no footprints behind him. The marshy ground had remained undisturbed. I tried to speak very calmly. "In a bit, man. Gonna set up my tent now." "All right," came the soft reply. By some small miracle of muscle memory, I got my tent set up in the pitch dark in record time, then crawled in. Some instinct warned me against switching on my own flashlight. It didn't matter anyway. I still saw the cairn glimmering like bone in the middle of my flimsy abode. So I'm typing this on a phone whose battery is rapidly diminishing. Yes, I tried to contact the police, but my call failed, and I wouldn't know what to tell them anyway. Somehow I was able to access the internet, but I don't have much hope that this will ever be seen. It's still standing out there, waiting, toying with me. Sometimes I hear its rapid footsteps circling me at a gallop. Other times it runs long fingers down the outside of my tent. While returning from a hike on the darkest night, we heard a cry for help. "Man, I'm tired." Kip whines his boots, thudding against the dirt path. I can see his face, but his back's hunched over shoulders, slumping as he trudges along. I want to crawl under a blanket and sleep for a whole week, maybe 2. "You need to shower first," I say, keeping my eyes forward. "You stink," though in all honesty, so do I. A long day of hiking has us both sweat-drenched and worn out. Even the short trek back to the parking lot is starting to feel impossibly long, and it certainly doesn't help that we can barely see where we're going. Tonight is especially dark. There's not even a sliver of moon in the sky, leaving our surroundings drenched in darkness. My flashlight lets me see Kip's silhouette and the trail we're following, but it does nothing for the looming shadows around us. It's fine. Though I've walked this trail for years, it's a pretty safe area. Even in the dark, The hike back is plenty relaxing, surrounded by the chirps of crickets, the occasional owl hoot in the distance, and the slight breeze ruffling my hair. I almost feel like falling asleep on my feet. "Do you hear that?" Kip says, "What?" "Listen," he whispers, stopping in place. His head swivels around. I frown and stop behind him. I don't hear anything. Kip shushes me, his posture stiff and alert. I turn my flashlight to our surroundings, shining the pale light on tangled grass and tree trunks. Nothing out of the ordinary, although now that I'm paying attention, it has gotten oddly quiet. No more chirping sounds. All that's left is the slight panting of our breaths and the soft rustling of clothing fabric against skin. It was like the world had stopped around us. "Kip, what exactly do you have?" A shrill scream shatters the silence, followed by a high-pitched female voice. "Help me!" I freeze, my eyes widening. My feet feel rooted to the ground, but Kip immediately breaks into a sprint, calling out a terse, "Come on!" as he runs off the path. "Kip, wait." I turn around, swinging my flashlight just in time to see his silhouette disappearing into the tree line. My heart's pumping and my hands are trembling. This is supposed to be a safe trail. Damn it, I've never seen anything here larger than a rabbit. Why did Kip have to run off like that? He doesn't even have a flashlight. Why didn't he wait for me? I shake my head violently, trying to clear my thoughts. I should follow after him. It's probably not a big deal. Maybe the girl just tripped and hit her head. Yeah, that's probably what happened. I'm sure I got a first aid kit somewhere in my backpack. I urge myself forward in Kip's direction. Stepping off the trail and between the trees, the pale light shows me just the swaying of the grass left in his wake. Even the sound of his footsteps has already faded into the night. Alone in the dark, I take a deep breath and start running. "Help me," the person calls out again. I focus on the sound of her voice. It reassures me as long as she's speaking. I know that she's still fine. Obviously, she wasn't attacked by a bear or something, or she would have stopped shouting a while ago. It's a stupid worry anyways. There isn't a single bear within miles of this place. "Kip," I shout. No response. He's a fast runner, and he had a long head start. I'm sure he'll get to her any moment now. Maybe he's already by her side waiting for me to call 911. His phone doesn't get any service in this area. He told me that himself. "Help me." The voice grows louder as I get closer to the source. The trees have begun to thin. I slow down to a walk, panting heavily into the night air, clenching my flashlight until my knuckles turn white. Something isn't right. The voice doesn't sound too far if I run. I'll reach it soon enough, which means that at the pace he was running, Kip should already be there. Even without light, it's easy to tell where she is just based on sound. Once he gets there, I'm sure he'll reassure her. Tell her everything's gonna be alright, and then she won't need to keep shouting anymore. That's what should already be happening. Help me. So why hasn't she stopped? And why is she always repeating the same two words, the same shrill desperation, the way she holds the E in me for an extra second every time? Something about it seems so off. Help me. The same words, same pitch, same tone. I'm starting to feel oddly exposed, vulnerable. I flick a button on my flashlight, putting it into low power mode, dimming the beam. I'm trying to keep my footsteps quieter. This close, it's also hard not to notice a slight tinny quality to the voice that I don't really trust. My skin prickles from the odd feeling that someone's watching me. My breathing sounds far too loud in the deathly silence of the forest. Help me. An icy chill crawls up my spine as I'm struck with a horrific thought. No, a realization. I'm certain of it now. It is the same damn voice shouting every single time, as if somebody's playing a recording on loop. There never was a person in distress. Was there Kip and I? We were being lured to a trap the whole time. I turn off my flashlight entirely and back into a tree, slumping down into myself. Panting and shaking uncontrollably, I fumble in my pocket, pulling out my phone and holding it close to my chest, covering it with my hands to prevent the screen's light from leaking out. I switch it on, scroll through my contacts, tap on Kip's name and say a quiet prayer. He picks up on the second ring. Thank God. He's all right. His voice comes booming out of the speakers. "Where are you?" I scramble to lower the volume as I hiss back at the phone. "Kip, listen to me. We need to run." This might sound crazy, but it's a goddamn trap. It's not a person who needs our help. It's just some kind of recording or whatever. I don't know who the fuck is out there, and I don't want to find out. There's a long pause. Does he not believe me? I continue. "Just you've got to be close by, right? I'm guessing you were trying to follow the sound in the dark. Come find me first." "Okay, I'm hiding by a tree. Don't worry, I'll turn on my flashlight so you can see me." "Where are you?" he asks again. I mean, I don't know exactly where, but if you walk around, where are you? My breath catches in my throat. All of a sudden, I feel very dizzy and my ears are ringing loudly. Oh, right, Kip's phone doesn't have service, so we shouldn't be talking right now. My phone slips from my hand. It bounces on the dirt and thuds against the ground somewhere off to the side. Kip's voice calls out again. Quieter, yet still clear enough that I can make out the same few words. The same pitch, same tone, just like a recording being played on loop.